Hey there! In this video, we will talk about one thing that one must absolutely do without exaggeration immediately when that person wants to change her or his life. Change your identity, change your life. Now, how do you change your identity? Well, you pay attention to the story that you say to yourself and to others, and you change that. Do you want to be in the past? Or do you want to be in the now and in the future that's ahead of you? That's a good question. So I structured this topic in two different videos, and you are watching part one. Part one will cover three different stories of three different people who did this. In the second part of this topic, you will see a brainstorming session with questions that have helped people uncover who they are and stay in that new identity. Enjoy, and thank you for being here. Before we get to the brainstorming session, I want to tell you three stories that are relevant of people that I worked with, and you will see they're connected with this topic. Change your story, change your identity, change your life. So here is the first story. Here I am working in the office back when I was doing financial planning, and at a point we hired somebody. And that person kept telling us she was super nice, super lovely girl, and she kept telling us the story of her divorce and how much, betrayal there was and this and that, and she was reliving everything. She was in it every time, and pretty much she talked about this every day, every occasion she had, be it in the kitchen, in the, at lunch, in a conference room, she talked about it. And guess what? One day somebody asked her, okay, how long ago did you divorce? Because we all felt like she divorced yesterday. And guess what she said? 7 years ago. Well, maybe it was 4 years ago, but still, it was a long time ago, like moons away from the moment. And we realized, oh, okay, you're still there. You're not here with us. You're not this amazing, beautiful woman, talented, and so on. We all see you as that, but you just insist to be in that story with, cheating and betrayal and ex-husband. Why? So apparently there is a connection. She hasn't changed her story. She kept running on an older story, even though she physically changed a few things. Now, how do you think her life would be if she completely changed not just her job, her, apartment, her location, but her story as well? Do you think she would have had more progress? Better chances to meet somebody else? Yeah, probably, definitely. A second time when I realized that changing your story has such value, and I was doing coaching with a client. She came to me and she said she wanted support with winning a tennis tournament. And she also wanted to do public speaking and reach a certain level. I said, good, let's see what we have. With this brainstorming session, we uncovered that her story was what she had heard from her mother, that she wasn't good enough, she wasn't talented enough, she wasn't prepared enough to win a tennis tournament, and so on. So you can imagine that she stayed in that story probably 20 something years, because she had heard the story when she was in her 20s, that she wasn't gonna reach a certain level because her sister was better than her. At that point, she assimilated that story that she wasn't good enough, and she carried that on, and guess what? It reflected in other parts of her life as well, not just on the court playing tennis, because she obviously was struggling to get to that next level with her speaking contest and public speaking achievements as well. She worked on her story Okay, and she got back on the tennis court. She recognized that, okay, when I started playing tennis, maybe I didn't have all the skills, and maybe I didn't have all the training that I needed to win a tennis tournament or to get a certain level. But I train and I train and I train, and I'm going to get there. And this is what she did, and she ended up being of a certain age years later, 20 years later, and she won a tennis tournament, and that was amazing. And then in her speaking contest, she was competing, or maybe she was aiming for a certain, I think for a certain position. Well, we're talking about Toastmasters here, so you may be familiar with that, but she got everything that she wanted just by twisting and tweaking a little bit those parts of her story that kept her somewhere, you know, in an old identity. The third story that I want to tell you was with a friend of mine. And in this case, she also had adopted a perspective of somebody from outside of her. And by adopting that story or that perspective, she took that in and created her own story. And for some time, she believed it. She believed that she could never do public speaking. She believed that she could never sell because that was something that she had heard. Okay, and in her old story, with her old identity, she indeed had never sold before, and she wasn't necessarily a public speaker. But again, that was her old story. And the moment she decided, no, I'm going to do something else, I'm going to become more, I'm going to sell, I'm going to do presentations. And even though those skills are not in my mastery at this point, I can still learn, I can still start something new. Now, she, as compared to the first example that I gave you, she identified that she didn't have the right story, and she changed her story, and within a few months she was where she wanted to be, which is an amazing situation. And this is why you have coaching sessions and personal growth and, well, you know, a mentor that can direct you to change your perspective a little bit, help you hear yourself, help you see yourself in the mirror, because sometimes we get so caught into this old identity that we kind of ignore the new identity that's ahead of us or that we are aiming to have. My friend, she wanted to change her jobs, but she wanted more. However, in her story, it was, I don't have the background, I don't have this training, I don't have that training, I've never done this before. That was her old story. She joined certain public speaking clubs, and within a few months she realized, yes, but I am actually I am a presenter. And she was a presenter. And then the more brainstorming she did, she realized, actually, I do sell. I don't have to be in a place where I charge to sell something, but I can convince people, I can present a case, and so on. Skills that you need when you are a salesperson. Okay, so these were 3 stories where these people change their identity. Basically, they change their story of their own identity, and that helped them progress towards somebody else. This is it for the first video of this topic. There is a second video coming up. Change your story, change your life.